I'd like to call this meeting of the New Hanover County Board of Education to order. Please stand for the invocation. Remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance and presentation of colors. Let us pray. Lord, we thank you for this day and for this opportunity to serve and to come together to discuss the educational needs of our community. We ask that you would guide and direct us, and that everything that takes place here tonight will be pleasing in your sight. In your holy name I pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. There's a microphone over here if we could, it's right here. You could have the singers identify the school and the grade they're from, please.
Okay, all of these young ladies are from Anderson and they're all in 5th grade. I'll have them say their names now.
Tori Concleton. Lauren Frank. Jamie Ford. Brianna Pierce. Kaylee Ratliff. Alex Green. Courtney Pardo. Jocelyn Hamner. Maddie Chalowski.
And let's give our young ladies a round of applause. They're from Anderson Elementary School, and the principal is Ms. Carol Piner. The instructor is Jeremy Matthews. Thank you, Jeremy. And Carol, are you here? There you go, waving in the back. Thank you. Now, if our cadets If you would please identify your school and the grade you're in, your rank, please.
My name is Staff Sergeant Raheem Dingle.
My name is Cadet Captain Jennifer Coffey.
We're from New Hanover High School, and my name is Cadet Major Mark Perez.
Cadet Sergeant Raheem Dingle.
And a round of applause for New Hanover. They are from New Hanover High School with the interim principal, Mr. James McAdams. I saw him earlier. James, are you? Oh, yeah, he went outside. And instructors, Master Sergeant Denajian and Lieutenant Colonel Mark Hafer. We certainly appreciate you being here tonight and taking part in our presentation. At this time, Ms. Adams, will you call the roll, please?
Donald S. Hayes.
Here.
Jeanette S. Nichols.
Here.
Janice A. Kavanaugh. Here. Tammy J. Koval. Here. Lisa Easton. Here. Derek G. Hickey. Here. Edward B. Higgins.
Here.
Thank you. Item 2 on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I'm requesting that item F, which is the demographic analysis, be moved to the top of the information section. The gentleman who'll be presenting that has to drive back to Rock Hill, South Carolina tonight. And then I would request a closed session for personnel and land discussion at the end of the meeting.
At the end of the meeting, okay.
Second.
Any questions, comments? Thank you, that is approved. Item 3, approval of the minutes from our regular meeting, February the 15th, 2014.
Move for approval.
Comments, questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Item 4, recognition of achievement.
Good evening, everyone. We begin our recognition ceremony this evening with a very special award, and it's called the Board Heroes Award. This award is specifically designed to recognize and celebrate the heroic efforts of New Hanover County Schools staff or students who help to save or dramatically impact the life of another. And so here's our story of our heroes. On December 9th, 2013, Christina Morris, a 4th grade teacher at Bradley Creek Elementary School, and Jamie Hardy, the school nurse at Bradley Creek, exhibited heroic characteristics when they acted together to save a young student's life. When one of Miss Morrison's students had a rare but serious asthma attack on the playground, she immediately sprung into action. She elicited the help of Miss Hardy. She called 911, and when the emergency inhaler was not enough, Miss Morrison carried the student a great distance to meet Miss Hardy, who had to run back inside to get the medicine the student needed. No doubt that Miss Morrison and Miss Hardy's ability to quickly recognize a child in crisis, maintain composure, and take action helped save that child's life that day. So the board tonight is presenting a special plaque for display at Bradley Creek Elementary School to commemorate the heroic efforts of the staff, as well as present Miss Morrison and Miss Hardy with the Board Heroes Award. I would ask that Miss Morrison please come forward, and Miss Hardy on her behalf, since she was not able to be here this evening, and Principal Jane Kiker come forward, and we will have a group shot with the board. Congratulations.
just wanted to say that we're so delighted not just to have Miss Morrison as our hero, but to have her as one of our fellow teachers. She does these kind of wonderful deeds all day long. She was just rewarded for this, but she truly should be recommended for all of her work that she does through the day and through the weekend to make sure the children get what they need. Nurse Hardy is not able to be with us tonight because she's at Holly Tree with the PTA. One of her 4 children are performing tonight. So I accept this in her honor, and thank you very much for recognizing our teachers.
Next, we will recognize one of our students, young Mr. Dixon Moss. Dixon is a 5th grade student at Gregory Elementary School. And I think we have his picture up there. Is Dixon here? Dixon, come on up, don't be shy. Dixon entered artwork in GE's North American Young Generation in Nuclear Drawing Contest, a national program geared towards educating 4th and 5th grade students about the wonders of nuclear science and technology. His drawing, seen here, won 3rd place in a national contest. So this is a really big deal. And we would like to thank your family, Dixon, your superstar PR lady principal, Ms. Krista Holland over there, and your teacher, Rebecca Jones, for supporting you. Congratulations. Can we ask Dixon's parents to come forward, and also Mrs. Holland, his principal? It's not often one of our children wins something for the whole nation, so it's a big deal.
I want to put you on the spot.
Thank you. We just are thankful for this honor. Dixon is one of the many gems that we have at Gregory. As you can see, he's quite a personality. He's a bright student, and he has a wonderful future ahead of him. We are so proud of him at Gregory. Thank you.
Next, we will recognize 6 middle school students for their achievement in the Young Authors Contest. Part of the purpose of this contest was to stretch students as writers and help them develop empathy that not only leads to powerful writing, but also help them to a greater understanding and compassion for people. So from Holly Shelter Middle School, we have Haley Lewis. Is Haley here? Marley Fanning and Lauren Turner. And they were the only 8th graders in New Hanover County Schools to win the Young Authors at the state level. And their principal, Dr. Sherry Pinto, is here as well. Dr. Pinto.
She's also a very good speller. I recognize her from young spelling.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
And then we had another student, Connor Carroll, who was one of only 2 7th graders in the county to win at the state level. Connor's not here, okay. From Roland Grice, Isabel Frick was the only 6th grader to win at this level, and Nathan McAllister was the 2nd of 2 7th graders to win at the state level. Is this Isabel? There she is in her pretty purple. Please come forward. Are you Nathan? Okay. And here's Nathan McAllister. Any of the families of these students here, would you please stand, and your principals, Dr. Pinto and Mr. Hatch, if you're here. Thank you, and we congratulate you on your outstanding students. And finally, we're getting some money. Now, Mr. Joe Lachlan, and Joe is a representative of the Cape Fear Choirsmen, and the Cape Fear Choirsmen will come up and they will present New Hanover County Schools Choral Department with a $1,600 donation in honor of our choral music. And they will present that to my good friend Georgianne Haas, the supervisor of arts education.
Not tonight.
We only have 3 of the 4 parts here.
Yeah.
Pardon me? Yeah.
We are, like she said, the Cape Fear Choirsmen. We are your local barbershop chorus, and we are pleased to be here tonight. We're pleased to be able to bring this check to you for $1,600. It is the proceeds from our annual Christmas show, and it is to be split equally between the 4 high school choral programs. Our board came together last fall and decided we wanted to start working with the choral programs here in the county. And to that end, we've done this. We are also in the midst of planning a youth festival. We have currently 5 area choral programs that are participating in this festival, around 130 students. Those students have music in hand right now. They are working, rehearsing with their instructors, and are learning 3 songs. They are to have that ready to go and bring it to our festival, where we have some great technicians there to coach and direct them. We have from Indianapolis a fine young quartet, international quartet, Instant Classic, who was the 2012 Collegiate International Champions. Last year they graduated and they had to compete with the big boys, and they came in semifinalists, so they are an excellent group. We also have our immediate past director of the Choirsmen, Larry Reinhardt, who will be directing them. So I think we put together a great day for these kids, and we look forward to that. This festival is just one of hundreds of festivals that is going on across the country. The Barbershop Harmony Society, of which we are, it's our parent organization, is the largest singing organization in the world. And their foundation raises around $1 million each year. And they have put all that money towards youth programs. So they have these festivals, they have 3-day camps, they have competitions. They even have Harmony University, where a week-long learning experience for these kids. I was there last year and saw 85 kids have just an awesome experience. So there's lots of things that we and the society can do. Last year, 10,000 kids were impacted with what the Barbershop Society has done. The Choirsmen really think that arts education in the schools is important, that it makes better students, it makes better citizens, and it makes better communities. And we look forward very much to working with Ms. Haas, and we would like to present you with our check.
part of the group. Let's sing.
Still not too late if you would like a short little performance of some type. I will say one year, I think it was during the summer, it's been several years ago, we did not have anyone that night to do the national anthem, and I had contacted the Cape Fear Corpsmen, and they came, and then they graciously did what several others patriotic songs, and we thoroughly enjoyed it, and would love to have them come back and appreciate what they're doing, and everything they said about arts education. This board certainly agrees with, and has been for many years now. And we'll say more about that later with Best Foot Forward. Okay, next item on the agenda, item 5, is our call to the audience. I would just remind our speakers that everyone, you are limited to 3 minutes. So our first person to sign up, Catherine Penninger.
Hello, my name is Catherine Penninger, and I'm a 4th grade teacher at Ogden Elementary School. One of the things I love most about teaching 4th grade is engaging my students in learning about the great state of North Carolina, as North Carolina is the focus of the Social Studies Essential Standards in 4th grade. My students spend the year exploring the history, government, economy, geography, and culture of our great state. I am proud to teach my students about North Carolina's beauty from the mountains to the coast, our state's role in historical events, and about North Carolina's landmarks. Students always take an interest in learning about our excellent university system, while they often debate whether their favorite color is dark blue, light blue, or red during basketball season. If you can't tell, I'm a proud North Carolinian through and through, and I also take great pride in my profession. I take my role in educating North Carolina's children very seriously. However, it is becoming extremely difficult for me to be proud of how North Carolina legislators are compensating our teachers. It's hard to be proud of being ranked 48th in the nation for teacher salaries while also being $10,000 below the national average. I'm in my 7th year of teaching. In May of 2013, I completed my master's degree in education at UNCW. I juggled the role of student and teacher in order to be the best I could be for my students. Because salary step increments have been frozen, I am technically still on year 1 on the pay scale, which is both demoralizing and financially stressful. My generation of teachers, so to speak, has been stuck at the same pay throughout our careers, yet we've stuck with it. As the demands of the job and the cost of living have increased, our compensation has stayed the same, and in some cases decreased, all while our care and dedication to our students and our profession has remained steadfast. Many teachers are taking on 2nd and 3rd jobs to make ends meet. These types of pressures will affect our students and their education if something doesn't change. What I'm asking of the school board today is to be our voice in support of fair compensation for all teachers at all experience levels, not just new teachers. You have led the school boards in the resolutions against the top 25%, and this shows that you are committed to public education. We all agree that we want the best and the brightest teachers teaching our children, so we need your continued support at both the state and local level. My 4th grade students and my colleagues would agree that with your help, we can aim higher to add teacher salaries to the long list of things that make us so proud to call North Carolina home. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next speaker, Eric Porterfield.
to speak against the proposal to redistrict a couple of neighborhoods where the students attend Pine Valley. First, let me thanks to the board for the service that you give to our community and making our schools and our families stronger. We really do appreciate that. I can't imagine a harder decision than the redistricting decisions, whichever schools are involved. You have the responsibility of asking families to make personal sacrifices for the greater good of the community. I, as a parent, certainly know that there are times when I need to embrace that request to make personal sacrifice for the greater good. My sense is, in this case, I don't feel comfortable embracing that request. First, I think that whenever families are asked to make a sacrifice for the greater good, we need to be contacted by email or letter to be told in advance of that and given the reasons for that. I don't know who does that, but if there's not a policy for that, I want to suggest that that would be done. We have not received notice or the reasons why this personal notice that this proposal has been taking place. Had we received it, we may or may not have had the same opinion, but we would have been involved in the process and would have felt better about that. Secondly, my family will be making a larger sacrifice in that, as I understand the current proposal, 5th grade students will stay at Pine Valley, but younger siblings will be moved to Holly Tree. Of course, I don't like my 5th grade and 3rd grader being at different schools, but also that increases the amount of inevitable scheduling conflicts and transportation work that we have to do. My wife and I will also have to divide our volunteer hours between 2 elementary schools, and so we won't be able to fully invest in either one. Third, we've invested 7 years. We've been in the Pine Valley family for 7 years. Many of our neighborhood friends have been there as long or longer. We know the school. Our kids are comfortable there. We love the racial and ethnic and religious diversity at the school. It's home. I recognize that in every redistricting question, similar things can be said. I certainly recognize that, but that doesn't diminish the truth of those statements. So I think in terms of since we have a small number of families involved, it seems to me that there's opportunity for conversation on this with families, with Pine Valley administration, with the larger administration, with the school board. Perhaps there are those in the neighborhood that do want to make the move. Perhaps there are some staggering ways that we can do it. I know that there is infrastructure at the school for 2 more mobile units. Perhaps that's a possibility as well. But again, thank you for your service to the community. I recognize the difficulty of the decisions. Thank you for listening to my concerns.
Thank you. Next speaker, Jennifer Hughes.
Good evening. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. I also wanted to extend an additional thank you to Dr. Derek Hickey for replying to my email and assuring us he will only consider moving our children if there are no other options. To that end, I would like to propose the following: adding a mobile learning unit or 2 to the existing hookups at Pine Valley, which would help accommodate for the number of students that you are looking to move. Please consider moving a neighborhood that is closer to the proximity of Holly Tree with a similar enrollment numbers. Changing district lines for the new school year, but making accommodation for all currently enrolled Pine Valley students, not just 5th grade students, to stay. This would benefit families with multiple children while having a minimal impact on students newly enrolling in the school. We realize that the overall number of students being impacted in this transition is small, but the impact on them and their families is large. We currently have 3 children enrolled at Pine Valley. We would like them to be able to finish out their elementary school years there. They have built valuable relationships with their teachers, administration, staff, and other students. As parents, we have volunteered many hours, donated many resources, and are very active in the PTA. We are a family committed to Pine Valley. We ask that you please consider an alternative plan with regard to redistricting, or at the very least, delay a decision until the proposed bond referendum has been addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on our sheet, Jenny Scherer.
Good evening. Thank you for giving me the time to speak with you this evening. I live in the Lansdowne neighborhood as well that's being up for redistricting, and we in the neighborhood are committed to Pine Valley. We have put many PTA hours in, our own money, and our valuable time to volunteer and help our children as well as other students in our school. Our neighborhood has established roots with Pine Valley. Please don't consider our children as just numbers. The impact on them is real. Our children's relationships at Pine Valley with their friends, teachers, staff are stable and crucial to their overall developmental well-being. Pine Valley is an extension of our family. Please consider alternate options before making a final decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Cynthia Gallagher.
Hello, my name is Cynthia Gallagher, and I would like to share a little bit about myself in a way in which you can put a name and numbers with a face. Recently, teachers' salaries have been an important topic in the news, at board meetings, and schools. Therefore, I appreciate the opportunity to speak before the board and to thank you for the support you provide all New Hanover County teachers. I hope the next time you are sharing stories of the real teachers of New Hanover County with other board members across the state, and especially with with North Carolina legislators, you will not only think of me and my colleagues at Ogden, but of all the teachers and students in our county who depend on you to be our voice. With that said, I could easily share pay scales, proposed budgets, and talk percentages and steps. But then the American Express commercial popped into my head. You know, the one that talks about a family vacation, $3,000, bathing suits, $250, memories, priceless. So instead, I wanted to share my commercial with you. The American Express commercial of Cynthia Gallagher, New Hanover County 5th grade teacher, Master of Ed's degree, 13 years teaching experience. 2009, in-class paraeducator support, 90 minutes. 2014, in-class paraeducator support, 30 minutes. In the red by 60 minutes. 2013, pre-made classcape quizzes, hundreds. 2014, SchoolNet pre-made quizzes, 0. In the red by hundreds of quizzes. 2014 contractual hours, 7:30 until 3 o'clock. 2014, my actual hours in the building, 6:45 to 4:30. In the red by 2 hours and 15 minutes a day. 2012, instructional days, 180. 2014, instructional days, 185. 2013-2014 North Carolina salary scale for 13 years experience with a master's, $42,520. 2012-2013, my North Carolina salary based on 7 years experience in New Hanover County, not including 5 additional years elsewhere, $36,036.04. In the red by $6,483.96. 2012-2013, reduced lunch eligibility, $42,643. 2012-2013, my North Carolina salary, $36,036.04. I'm in the red by $6,606.96, and my children receive free and reduced lunch. 2007, my New Hanover County Schools W-2 salary, $39,875.24. 2013, my New Hanover County W-2 salary, $36,036.04. In the red by $3,839.20. disheartening. Please continue to fight and support all New Hanover County teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That's all the individuals that had signed up tonight. Next item on the agenda. And I will say, people are listening across the state. The meetings that I've attended in Greensboro last week and others, there is, I hate to say there's, anyway, you're being heard, I'll put it that way. I'll just put it that. Next item is administrative personnel, and I understand we have nothing. Next item, item 7, under information.
We're going to move F to the top.
We'll start with F, New Hanover County Schools Demographic Analysis and Growth Projections, Appendix V. Mr. Hance.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We have with us tonight Dr. Jerry McKibben from McKibben Demographics, and he's going to present an analysis of the New Hanover County Schools Demographic Analysis. And this is something that we did before the 2010 census, and subsequently we have completed another one. We'll be updating this this analysis each and every year in order to enable us to cope with the growth cycle that we're in currently, so that we can accommodate the students that are going to be presenting themselves at the doors of the schools each and every year, increasing in number all the way out through about 2020. And so I'll present Dr. McKibben.
Thank you, Mr. Hance. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the board. I'm going to briefly go through the procedure and methodology for these forecasts and get into the actual results. And the first thing I should point out that these are forecasts, not projections. A projection is where you take past trends, hold them constant, drive them forward for 5 or 10 years. It assumes that what's happened in the past 3, 4, 5 years will replicate itself over the next 5 to 10 years. Given the last 5 years, we've had a major recession, a housing bust, a slow recovery. I'm kind of hoping we don't repeat over the next 5 years. So what we do here is to do a 2-step procedure, a full population forecast for every attendance area in the district, 0 to 4 population to 85 plus, male and female, and the results of that population forecast then drive an enrollment forecast. We look at the fertility, mortality, migration trends, new home construction, existing home sales, age structure, household composition, housing tenure, as many variables we can lay our hands on. We build each model specific to the demographic characteristics of each individual demographic or each individual attendance area. And I have to say that in New Hanover County, you've got somewhere in the county just about every demographic trend in the country going on someplace in this county. It's about as diverse as I've seen it. So like with any forecast, it's assumptions. And I want to go through the major ones real quick. First assumption, we do not go back into recession. And 2 key ones here are interest rates and the unemployment rate, both using percentages. Both these percentages are tipping points. We have 5.5 for 30-year fixed mortgage and 8.5 for unemployment. If interest rates rise and they go to 6%, stay there for a couple of months, drop back down, it's a slight drag on the forecast. If it goes to 9%, 9.5%, stays there for 2 years or so, it's a major drag on the forecast. Quite frankly, this school district, as well as every other area of the country, is dependent upon the sale of new and existing homes. If you can't buy homes, you cannot have people move in, go to different neighborhoods. Conversely, now they have what they call restrictive lending practices. You have to have a job, a down payment, and assets to buy a house. In other words, all the stuff us people over 50 had to have when we first bought our houses. But that also includes a job. Now, if the unemployment rate goes to 9%, stays there for a few months, drops back down, it's a minor drag. If it goes to 14, 15%, stays there for a couple of years, it's a major drag. If these assumptions are violated, I'm going to be too high in my forecast. I'll be the first one to tell you that. Other major assumptions is no additional restrictions are placed on whole mortgage lenders or additional bankruptcies. That's Freddie and Fannie. They don't go under in the next 5 to 10 years. Your foreclosure rate does not exceed 125% of the 05-07 average. You're at about 112% right now. Probably a little higher than you like, but far, far better than the national average in most other parts of the South, particularly, Georgia, Florida, places like that. Your transfer rate in and out the district remains at the constant average of the last 5 years, and also your intra-district transfer policy. The reason we hold transfer rates constant is so when you see the changes in the forecast, they are the ones driven by demographic factors only. I have absolutely no idea what the district's transfer policy on students is going to be in 2017. No more than I would know what the bond rate's going to be in 2017. Next. Inflation rate for gasoline stays below 5%. There's no building moratorium. Your businesses remain viable. Number of existing home sales that are distressed sales, underwater mortgages that exceed 20%. This is very, very key. In New Hanover, as with most counties, most school districts in the country, there is a fixation on new home construction. Granted, you go to an area, drop in 100 new homes, has a dramatic impact on the enrollment. However, for every new house built in the county, 6 existing homes are bought and sold. Existing home sales is a far more important driver of future population change. Given the age structure of the population in the county, it's going to become an even bigger factor, probably close to 9 or 10 to 1 by the end of the forecast series. Your distressed sales are not that bad. The 2 sources we use for existing home sales, RealtyTrack and Zillow. Zillow's better for regular sales. RealtyTrack's a little better on the foreclosure. But those are our 2 address level data sets that we use. Your housing turnover rate remains at constant level. The majority of home sales are made by over 55 people. Actually, the bulk of it's going to be over 70 population. It's not retiring at 65 if people downsize. It's over 70. And it's not retirement, it's the death of one of the spouses. Then you go to a single person household, maintenance of the home becomes difficult, and then decide to downsize, where they may move to other places of the district or someplace else. Recent decline in home construction's ended, stabilized, and the foreclosure of commercial property remains at 04-07 levels. Next slide, please. I learned many, many, many years ago that if I opened up with a set of numbers, you're all asleep in about 20 seconds. So what we're going to do here, this is a population pyramid. It's a graphic representation, and this is from the 2000 census. This is from the forecast we did about 6 years ago. It's male, female, 0 to 4, 85 plus. And you can see the relative size of the population in the life course. 0 to 4, that's your preschoolers. There's your elementary, middle, high school. See the little bubble here with the college students, but this is your ages for family formation. These are the ages where most households have school-age kids. These are your empty nest households, and these are your turnover. I also refer to this as your demographic fingerprint. No 2 areas have exactly the same size and shape of their population pyramid. It's their own unique demographic characteristics. And your report has a population pyramid for each individual attendance area, and you will notice that none of them look anything like this. This is why we don't use district averages, because you miss the unique demographic characteristics of each individual attendance area. And I have a few I want to show as examples. Next slide. Next slide is 2010. Some of this growth in the 2024 is the diversity, but not all of it, okay? But you'll also notice the 0 to 4 bar is slightly larger than the 5 to 9. Even without any additional in-migration, just with the kids already here in the county, aging into the school, your enrollment should be increasing. Now, as is the case in most urban areas, you have higher birth rates, higher household size in the urbanized areas, and some of these will move to the suburbs. In the last decade, when the housing market was on steroids, when all you needed was a mortgage to have a pulse, a lot of these would wind up in Pender and Brunswick County. Now, with the slowdown in the housing, a lot of them are staying put, so a greater proportion of this wave here is aging into your school, and that has been confirmed with your enrollment trends of the last 3 years. I'll get to that point later. But you'll also see growth in the empty nest households. Next slide, please. This is your residential building permits for the county over the last 13 years. Here's your peak last decade, dropping down, coming down to 500 units per year in 2009. Clearly, you've bounced back. You're up to 1,500 now, and we have you forecast staying at 1,500 a year for the next 3 to 4 years and dropping back to 1,000. But the one thing I can tell you with about 99% accuracy, you're not going to see 3,000 housing units a year built again anytime in the near future. And I can say that with certainty because you're going to have a record number of existing homes being downsized going on the market the next 10 years. Next slide. Also in your report, you will see, this is from the 2010 census, our forecasts and the percent change. The district grows at 7.2%, but that varies greatly. Still have pop growth. Next slide, please. These are your household characteristics. Each attendance area has different household size, 2.28 for the district as a whole. Note, only 26.8% of your households have under 18 population. That's dropped since 2000. It continues to drop today. Empty nest household is your fastest growing household type. But even at that, it varies greatly throughout the district. You have high of Murraysville 37, and you have a low of like 15% in Winter Park. College Park has 17%. So you see a lot of variation in your different attendance areas. Next slide. Homeowners 35 to 54, 35%. Homeowners 65%, 21%. Homeowners just about 60%, and all have a wide range. Now, these are the ages where most households have kids, okay? Now, there are exceptions to the rule, okay? Some have kids younger, some older. I was a first-time father at 40. I now have a senior in high school. And when we go to the parent functions, everybody tells you what a nice, well-behaved grandson I have, okay? But I can see how few of us there are out there in our late 50s with high school students. You'll also see some people in their late 30s with high school students, but again, that's rare also. But these are the households you're going to find the bulk of your school-age kids. Next slide. Single-person households, 30%, not surprising in an urbanized area. But single-person households over 65, this is a proxy measurement for the potential of households that will turn over in the next 10 years with downsizing. Aldermen at 23% is the high, and then you've got several down the 6 and the 5%. But again, a great range amongst your different attendance areas. Next slide. And this is my favorite one. This is new from the 2010 census. This is counts by single year of age. 6-year-olds are roughly first grade, second, third, fourth, fifth. You can see the relative cohort size of those coming in. This year's kindergarten cohort was 2-year-olds in the 2010 census. 3-year-olds are now your first graders, fourth, fifth, sixth. So we can see by each one of your attendance areas what's the relative size of the preschool age cohort coming in. If you see a spike in first grade and kindergarten enrollment one year, is it because of growth and immigration, or did you just happen to have a rather large cohort coming in? Conversely, if you see a drop-off, is it a one-year abnormality or is it a real demographic trend? And we've matched up your last 3 years enrollment, how they've changed the relative share of the total population with what you actually have done, which substantiates, and you'll notice at the district level, the cohort sizes stay pretty constant, about 2,300. Like most school districts, you get about between 88 and 90% of those will show up in your schools at the elementary level. That's normal market share. But as a rule, you should not see a major drop-off, and any increase in your enrollment over the last 3 years has been true in migration. So we can do that, again, by each individual elementary attendance area. Next slide. A couple of the population pyramids from the individual schools. Picked Ogden here because it has the classic we call suburban pattern. Not very many apartments, very, very few people in their 20s. A lot of people have moved in single-family detached homes, empty nesting. Notice a rather large deficit in the 0 to 4. There's not enough women in childbearing age to produce age cohorts, the current 5 to 9. So this area would need in-migration, either of new homes constructed or empty nesters moving out and new young families moving in, bringing their children with them, just to keep the enrollment constant. Next slide. Conversely, at Carolina Beach, this is kind of the anti-pyramid. Largest cohort is in the 60s, smaller, and again, a bit of a deficit. But this one also has the potential for large numbers of existing households to turn over and allow young households to move in if it's the type and size and price that they can afford. And they would need that, again, to make up for this deficit also. Next one. Williams, on the other side, has large number of apartments, large number of women in childbearing age, and hence a surplus. Over the last 3 years, you should have seen, with absence of migration, a rather large increase in the enrollment. Now, what happens with apartments is you don't come out of college and buy a house. You come out of college and get an apartment. Then you get married, have your kids, and you try to move to a single-family detached home, either in the district or in the suburban area. So, as a rule, a sizable proportion of this bubble won't make it to 5 to 9. They will have moved out. But given the slowdown in the housing market and the slowdown in the out-migration to suburban counties, a higher proportion are now staying in the district and showing up in the school. Next slide. Forest Hills. And this is, I put this one in because it's apartment. The next one's going to be college. You can tell the difference because apartments, a little bit of a rise in 15-19, but most of it's 2024 and corresponding large number of 0 to 4. The next one's a college area. Next slide, please. Corey, you see large number of 15-19 going to college, large number of students, here's some grad students, and very, very little increase in 0 to 4. So you have a lot of women in prime childbearing age in the district, but they're college students. They just don't have kids while they're in college. They wait till afterwards. So each of the elementary attendance areas have a population forecast. Looks like this. This is the 2010 base. These are the forecast years. Here are the components of change between the two periods: births, deaths, natural increase, net migration, and change. Notice that your median age for the district, 37, 38, 39, that's kind of high for an urban area with a rather large university into it. You normally see something down in the low 30s. So again, a point of an aging population, even with a large college here. And then finally, the next slide, and yes, this is designed to make you go blind, but you'll notice that, I should take it back up here a point. Most of the year-to-year changes in enrollment can be explained with how many kindergartners, first graders are coming in, how many 12th graders are going out. And the analogy I use is a bucket of water. If I have a bucket of water, I'm pouring water in the top, and there's a hole in the bottom. As long as I'm pouring water in faster, it's going out the bottom, the level's going to rise. But if that hole in the bottom gets bigger, and it's now going out faster than I'm pouring it in, even if I'm pouring it at the same pace, it's going to drop. That's what's happening with your enrollment. You'll notice that I don't have your K and first grade enrollment dropping that much. It's a very, very slight decline. But what is happening is your 12th grade classes are going from 1,600 to 17, 18, almost 1,900. You've got more leaving. And that's why your total district enrollment starts peaking out in 2017 and starts to slow down and level off and slightly decline towards the end. Not because there's fewer people coming in or smaller age cohorts, you just have larger high school classes moving on. And this wave will also manifest itself at the different levels too, because you're going to have, right now it's 1,800 fifth graders going to about 2,100. So you have this wave moving out of elementary, which is why elementary peaks about 2017, 18, and then moderates. Same thing with middle school, goes up in the later part of the decade, then moderates. And high school goes up across the line, except for, this is a statistical abnormality. 2018, you'll notice you have a 1-year drop of 235. Great example of the cohort effect is you have a really big cohort leaving in 2017, 1,900 students, matched up with a relatively small cohort coming into 9th grade, which I believe is your current 3rd graders. And that just happens to be a fluke. You have this big drop, and next year you start going back up again because the cohorts moderate out. I was told I had 15 minutes, and that's 15 minutes, so.
Well, thank you. Comments, questions from the board?
I have a comment, question.
Mr. Higgins?
I know in Wilmington currently, there's not a huge number of multi-bedroom apartment units, but I know that they're also starting to build more and more units downtown. Some, not huge, not the high-rise like you have in the real big urban areas.
But bigger than you used to.
Bigger than they used
Yeah.
to, 4 or 5 stories. And I don't know whether they're 2-bedrooms, 3-bedroom units, but I mean, they're the metal and concrete things, not the old, like you used to maybe. But what impact, if any, do you see in your forecasts that the a growth of upper residential apartments might have in attracting more people to, let's say, the downtown area along the river, as supplying to us?
Well, it depends on a host of factors. One, who they're marketing it to. They could potentially market to college students, young professionals, elderly, retirees, downsizers. Another one is price. There's a great rule in demography. You can have money, you can have kids, but you can't have both. So as the price goes up for both houses and rents, the number of kids goes down. Anybody who's got kids knows what I'm talking about on that one. So if it's marketed for young, and it's very common now for urbanized areas, particularly the Riverwalk area, shops, restaurants to go along with it, aimed for young professionals, maybe in the $800 to $1,200 range. 2 bedrooms, could be roommate, could be kids, could be significant other, whatever it might be. It helps the population. As a rule, it doesn't help the number of kids in the area. The $800 to $1,200 range tends to have a relatively small yield of about 0.1 kid per housing unit. Also, if they do have children in there, they're more than likely preschool. And by the time the child gets to kindergarten, 1st grade, and even more importantly, if a second child comes along, then it starts getting a little cramped, and by that time they're starting to look for single-family detached homes. So the apartments themselves will raise the population, but as opposed to raising the number of particularly elementary age children in the area, it doesn't have that much of an impact.
What about, maybe I shouldn't have said apartments, but high-rise condos?
Even less for condos. Again, if you can afford a condo, you can probably afford a starter home someplace. Particularly if you do have a child in a condo, it tends to be a preschooler. Once they start getting to the point where they're 5, 6, 7 years old, you're starting to think more about parks nearby, a place they can run around, some place where I can send them so they don't drive me nuts, Backyard would be a great place for that, and most condos don't have that. So, and again, if they're developing it, the people who develop the properties will have a segment of the population in mind, and whoever they market it towards they'll be successful. Very, very few of them market it for, hey, let's get young people with elementary age kids. It's just not a very big market because they know they're competing against single family detached.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
In the past, when we've had demographic studies, they have included a breakdown by race and or socioeconomic. I didn't see that in this report. Did you not do anything regarding race and socioeconomic?
Wasn't asked.
Thank you.
One comment, and actually, I guess it's a dual comment. I find this demographic data just fascinating. It's really interesting, at least to me. One of the things that's sort of surprising to me is it looks like we've had increasing enrollment year after year after year. But according to this demographic forecast, this is going to peak in 2017 and then level off. So it's not going to decrease as much as it's going to level off in 2017.
Yeah, I would call it leveling off. It's, you know, less than 0.5% change per year, yeah.
And I think this forecast will be very interesting next year. I think Mr. Higgins makes a good point. There has been a big increase in multifamily building permits in New Hanover County, particularly in the last couple of months. And if you just drive around town, Mr. Hansley brings something to us tonight about multifamily dwellings on Eastwood Road in terms of changing attendance zones. And if you drive up Porter's Neck, you see lots of multifamily dwellings. And I get your point that those are starter places for young people with preschool children. But again, as long as interest rates stay low and we have some turnover, that may drive new growth into the community.
Well, I'm hoping they come online because I've got you at 1,500 new housing units coming online this year. And if something happens and it's only 1,100, I'm probably going to be too high. Also, this year I noticed in the analysis by the individual age cohorts, your kindergarten cohort this year did not come in as high as it should have. There's like 300 of them missing. When you see a large-scale out-migration, you'll see it across the age groups, not just concentrated in one. So when we do next week, and every year as part of the procedure, I'll call up Bill and say, send me your ADM numbers, and we'll do an analysis by grade and by school for the first 3 years of the forecast. And I'm interested to see what next year's first grade cohort is, because I got them coming back in. That's why you only went up 100 some students this year as opposed to 700 last year. I got going back up to 600 or 400 next year because I think that missing population going in. When we do the forecast, we base them not on kindergarten but first grade, because not everybody goes to kindergarten, but almost everybody goes to first grade. So it's a much better base, much less variability in it. So when a kindergarten cohort comes in that's low like that, and there's not demographic information to back it up, I don't see out-migration of the age cohorts, they may be using some other kind of option, private daycare, private school daycare, reading readiness, kids not ready, parental decision, whatever. So next year will be a very, very key one, particularly for the first grade. And I've got your kindergarten participation rates next year going back up to their traditional levels. I bring this up for a reason, because if it does happen like that, it has nothing to do with the apartments. That means they're already in there. There's something else going on. When you look at demographic changes, people always concentrate on 1, 2, or 3 factors. There's about 20, 25 of them floating around out there you have to look at, in varying degrees in different parts of the school district. Areas where they're building apartments, of course, one area, but you have to worry about housing turnover there because there's not that many existing homes. Get down Carolina Beach area, then it's a much bigger impact, not new construction, but what's the existing home sales market going to look like?
Bill, was that some of the early Power School data we sent initially for that? Did those numbers come out of Power School?
It did.
That may be part of the problem.
They understand, don't they?
Any other questions, comments? Well, we certainly appreciate it, and be careful on your long drive. I don't know what the weather's like up that way.
Well, at least it's not going to snow on the way home this time.
Yeah.
Mr. Hanson, anything you wanted to add to this?
No, that's fine. We will be as we said, we will be using this each year to come back because we've got to accommodate the growth that we see and that we project for the next, 10 years, every
Now, Bill,
single
we
year.
actually
so.
exceeded his last set of predictions, didn't we?
Yeah.
Our actuals?
That was prior to the census, though.
Because I know we're projected, another 1,000, but then when is that supposed to take place?
I believe it's 2019 or so, we're projected. We go over 27,000 in 2018, 19, something like that. Is when we're projected to exceed that.
Okay.
So that's another 1,000 students above and beyond what we have right now, a little bit more than 1,000.
That's why the bond becomes even more important in November of this year with just to keep up with the growth that.
Well, we're just the fact that even if we stayed level and nothing happened, we're already over capacity at most of our buildings.
Right, that's what I was thinking, just because all that's going to include is the addition of one new school, and that's up in the Porter's Neck area. I mean, we're going to renovate some schools and do some things, but as far as increasing capacity, not really increasing that much.
No, and we're not able to get rid of our mobile classrooms. In fact, we're adding more mobile, so.
Right. We have roughly 3 schools in mobile units alone. So, yes, if the goal is to get rid of
Yes.
mobile units.
Then we need 3 more schools.
Right.
Need a larger bond, don't we?
And when you do renovate some schools, you can add some capacity. When we replace the 2 schools, that if the bond is approved by the county commissioners and if the voters approve the bond, we would replace 2 schools. And those 2 schools, you would gain a little bit of capacity in those, but right now, those schools are holding more students than they can actually handle currently. So you'll gain a little capacity, but you won't necessarily see the student load go up. The buildings will just be able to handle it better.
And it's important also to realize that sometimes it's just not that easy because of the infrastructure, the impact that the increased numbers have on that of the school, that the media center, cafeteria, things like that cannot handle those increased numbers.
That's right. You get to a point in a school where even though that you can add additional mobile units there, that the core areas of the school just can't handle the student load. Cafeteria, the media center, they're just not sized in the older schools to be able to handle that load. So even though you can put 6, 7, 8 mobile units out there, then it still makes it very, very difficult to handle the students in there. You just can't do it. You wind up with 5 lunch periods, and 4 is bad enough. 3 is bad. So.
As well as security issues.
Yes.
That's a major concern now.
Yes.
With the mobile classrooms.
Any other comments from the board? Thank you very much. This time we'll go to item A, policies on for first reading. Mrs. Nichols.
We have 6 policies, so you can see that the committee's been busy. The committee, of course, consists of Mrs. Koval and Mrs. Estep, Dr. Markley, and senior staff. The first policy for your consideration, I'm going to ask Dr. Wilmers if he'll present the resolution.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. We've got a little bit of a unique situation because of the change in the law in Senate Bill 402. And we've reviewed our current personnel policy and determined that 5 policies are going to be impacted by the change in the law. As you're aware, there's been a lawsuit filed in Wake County by a group of teachers challenging the constitutionality of this law, specifically how it works with tenure and career track. And those are the areas that are impacting the 5 policies that we're talking about. Because of this uncertainty, instead of moving through each of these policies individual or attempting to change them to meet the current law, what we'd like to do is recommend that the board approve a resolution, the one we have presented, which suspends the application of any of these in these policies or the procedures that go with them to the extent that they conflict with Senate Bill 402 for as long as Senate Bill 402 remains a valid law. We will make changes in the policy as either the lawsuit or the law is more settled, but what we don't really want to do is make specific changes in pretty in-depth policies that we would just have to turn around and reverse dependent. So we would like to work with these policies through the resolution. Madam Vice Chair, would you like for me to read the resolution since it is a little bit different in the way we do policy?
I think that would be helpful for the audience as well as the TV viewers to understand what we're trying to resolve.
Yes, ma'am. Resolution. Whereas the New Hanover County Board of Education has various personnel policies dealing with probationary and career status or tenure for its teachers consistent with current law, and whereas as the North Carolina General Assembly enacted a law, Senate Bill 402, parts of which became effective for the 2013-2014 school year, and whereas the new law eventually eliminates probationary and career status for teachers and provides that teachers should be placed on employment contracts not to exceed 4 years, and makes other changes to existing law. And whereas a lawsuit has been filed in Superior Court in Wake County, North Carolina, by a group of teachers challenging the constitutionality of the new law, which creates uncertainty for local school boards as they attempt to implement the new law, and whereas the board's policies must be consistent with the new law unless and until it is declared invalid by the courts. Now therefore be it resolved that the New Hanover County Board of Education hereby suspends the application of any of its policies and procedures to the extent that they conflict with Senate Bill 402 for as long as Senate Bill 402 remains a valid law, including but not necessarily limited to certain provisions of the following policies: 6233, awarding of career status; 6236, non-renewal probationary teachers; 6355, evaluation of licensed personnel; 6610, reduction in licensed staff workforce; and 6110, staff contracts and compensation plans.
And this is for first reading?
Yes, this is first reading, so I appreciate it if you will go back and look at it very carefully. It is very complex because you can't have policies that someone in Raleigh is saying, well, this part of it works, but this part does not. And next week, they may tell us something different, so this is a very important resolution to be very familiar with.
Is this pretty much what Guilford County, the board, the Guilford County lawsuit, is this pretty similar to what they are?
Now, what this is a stopgap for us before we go ahead and do a major rewrite on policies, because we anticipate there's gonna be some kind of changes. Guilford's lawsuit is a direct challenge to the actual statutes. This just sort of gives us sort of an operating license going forward.
That's correct.
Okay, so we're just suspending then, as long as.
We're suspending our current policies if they conflict with the law.
Okay.
So we'd have to take it case by case when the.
Yes, ma'am.
So then this is on for first
reading.
information.
Yes.
Who would determine whether or not it is illegal? Mr. Bullard or Dr. Wilmers? Who is going to make that determination?
I would imagine that we'll look at the individual situation that's giving rise to why we're looking at the policy, and then probably discuss that with you as far as the suspension of the policy.
More questions?
Any more questions? I'm just trying to think back to the Guilford County suit that, because I think the big difference there, I think, was with the tenure was when they, years ago, changed that for administrators. They did not change it, you know, if you already had tenure, you retained that. And I think that's the basis of their lawsuit, that with this, you're going back, and I don't know the legal term for that, Mr. Bullard, but you're taking, it's different the way they're doing the teachers versus what they did with the administrators. Isn't that the basis of what they're?
They typically call that grandfather clause.
Right.
Where they leave the existing situation in place for the employees who already have tenure, and make the change only for new employees after that time.
And I think that's generally, I think, the basis for the Guilford County lawsuit, and that's why they feel they'll be successful.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question.
Go ahead, Mr.
I can get
Higgins.
some clarification. If we have a teacher, for example, who comes up at the end of this year, who would be eligible for career status under the old way of doing things, are we saying that we will or will not give them professional career status pending what the outcome of the lawsuit? Or are we just saying that they will be kind of put in abeyance? I mean, what as a board, what will we do?
Well, I think,
We'll follow the law unless
Well,
it's
I
repealed.
understand we'll follow the law, but you know, but I don't want to get tied up into a lawsuit for us. I mean, even if we were to grant career status and then the lawsuit fails, the one that Guilford County has, or whatever,
This is Wake.
then, you know, how do we, I want to make sure we don't get caught up in having to defend a lawsuit that may ultimately be legal or illegal, if you will, as a result of this career status law. I mean, what I'm asking is, if we refuse to grant career status, are we going to be, and I asked, I guess, Mr. Bullard, are we subject to suit even with the new law? Or if we grant career status provisionally, would we not be on better ground? I guess that's my question.
Well, anytime the legislature enacts a law, whether you agree with it or not, you have to follow it.
Right.
Unless the court invalidates it.
Right.
So my recommendation would be, when June 30th comes, or when June 1st comes, or the normal date for presenting teachers for contract renewals or tenure, that you follow the statute if it's still in effect at that time. You can't follow your existing policies because your existing policies say grant tenure in certain circumstances. So you would have to follow the statute unless a court has invalidated it between now and then.
What happens if they enter an injunction on it?
Well,
If the court would have,
enters an injunction, then we'd be prohibited from following the law and we'd go back to our existing policies.
but again, if they enter an injunction, at least in theory, we would not be able to grant absolute career status, because there is the possibility that ultimately the courts may find that career status, the elimination of career status is valid. So any career status we granted would have to be provisional, would it not?
Pending the outcome.
Pending the outcome, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, the court would ultimately decide whether our granting of career status would be upheld or not in that scenario.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
Okay, we have 5 other policies for first reading, and the first one is 6434, use of tobacco or nicotine prohibited by adults. And I'm going to ask Dr. Holliday if he will present all of them in the order that they're listed.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. And just sitting over here thinking as a demographer is rolling through this, and Denise and I are sitting at this time of year trying to come up with a projection for kindergarten for next year. I'm just reminded once again that 2 of those in all those numbers are going to have holiday lineage in the next few years, so y'all get ready, here they come. With that said, we'll talk about tobacco and nicotine. We had to go and look at several policies, our adult policy and our student policy on smoking and nicotine products, because of the proliferation of electronic cigarettes, more commonly known as e-cigarettes. And we went in and included this language in our policy for adults, which basically says we're not allowing those either. Some of this is cosmetic, but most of that is to address the use of electronic cigarettes, and also spells out the use of nicotine. However, and it came out in policy that we should add, and this is added in the next to the last paragraph, is that this policy shall not be interpreted to prohibit the lawful possession or use of prescription medication or the possession of the use of over-the-counter products designed to use to stop nicotine addiction. In other words, we don't want to stop an employee who is trying to quit and using nicotine gum. I mean, we don't want to say that's something he can't do or can't possess. So if they're, or a patch or something of that nature, we don't want to say that they can't do that
However, we are wanting to use the same prohibitions against e-cigarettes as we would on a regular cigarette or any other tobacco product like that. So the intent of this policy, and I think this language in the next to the last paragraph, would allow for employees who are trying to quit smoking to use those products without fear of any disciplinary action, but to eliminate the use of the nicotine delivery systems such as an e-cigarette. The interesting thing that came out and has come out in recent weeks especially, I saw something earlier this week in a publication that came across my desk that, and certainly we're not saying that our employees or our students would do anything like this, but the use of the electronic cigarettes in a delivery system for marijuana. And it's difficult to detect in using those kinds of things. So it's important that we understand that that these electronic cigarettes are not nearly as safe or as
benign.
So just wanted to make sure you understood that going in that. So that would be that policy, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair. Would you like me to continue?
Yes, go ahead and present them all, if you will, please.
I'll make sure I've got them in the order in my notebook as we've got them on the.
That's okay, we can follow.
Okay, the next policy is 8200, which is the school counseling program. And the change there is in the third paragraph that's added. One of the concerns that's been brought forward is the amount of time that our high school counselors spend with students. And so we're basically putting in policy what we want them to do in practice, which states very clearly the New Hanover County Board of Education recognizes unique and varied needs of high school students. Therefore, counselors at this level will have a conference, not meet with, but have a conference with each student assigned to them a minimum of once per semester. And that is the major substantive change there, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair.
Dr. Holliday, how do you define conference then?
Conferences is they come into your office and sit down and we talk to them. One of the things that came out in policy was meet, and it was a very good point, was meet is I might meet you in the hallway and say how things going, and I count that as a meeting. It's got to be I'm bringing you in and we're having a formal conference in my office.
And it has to be individualized.
Yes, sir.
It cannot be a
This is not
group meeting.
This is not classroom. These are some things our counselors are doing, but this is not. This would not count going into a classroom. This
Okay.
would be an individual conference.
Okay.
Okay.
And we're asking the counselors to verify the
Right.
conferences.
They would have to document this, and this would be a part of their evaluation that their supervisor, which is the principal, would be looking at.
Okay. Good.
We shared this with them at our dropout prevention meeting last month, which we have all the counselors and principals in there, and they're very receptive to doing exactly what you ask them to do. So we'll make that happen. The next policy is policy 8410, and as you know, this is a massive policy, and certainly to go through all this would take lots of time, but most of the changes in this policy would focus around a couple things that we were looking at in the law. We had to first of all define, put electronic cigarettes and define that as a part of our smoking policy, and that's in there. Also, laser or lights, which we did not have a first offense for that, so now that's defined as using a laser light on the first offense. You can short-term suspend a child for that. And the thing that came out in policy that we didn't consider but we put in there is defining any type of a device that you could shock someone with, like a taser or something of that nature, putting that and defining that in policy. And then some basic, what we're calling an electroshock device, which kind of does a broad scan of that. And then we made some cosmetic changes to this, but the primary situation was defining the electronic cigarette use and defining the consequence for that. The laser lights, the first offense, and of course then defining the electroshock devices. So that's pretty much where we are with that policy.
Any questions, please certainly send them to us, and we'll go with those. The next policy.
Can I ask you, is there a problem with electroshock devices?
Well,
I have not heard of this.
It came up in policy, and it was in there about the stun guns, and the question was from the policy committee was, what is that, and how does that relate to a taser, and does that, and it developed into a conversation about how those are used, and we just thought it best to define those. We really haven't had much of an issue with it, but it is in there, and that you can, of course, I guess, get those devices, and, you know, our kids are brilliant.
We're gonna be ahead of the curve, as Mr. Higgins said on that one.
I mean, we got some smart kids in New Hanover County Schools. I mean, let's just face it, they're smart. They're smarter than anywhere else, so they'll figure it out before anybody else will. The next policy, Madam Vice Chair and members of the board, is policy 8420, which is the substance abuse policy. We really didn't make any real changes to this policy, but in cleaning up the other policies, we found that this policy has language in it that no longer is applicable under the general statutes, which is zero tolerance. We can no longer, there are no longer any mandatory long-term or expulsion offenses. That doesn't mean you don't long-term suspend, and that doesn't mean you don't expel. It just simply means you now have to consider each case based on its own merit. So that's what zero tolerance means. So we've been instructed to go by and take out all the zero tolerance language in our policies, and this is just simply one that we missed. So we're cleaning that up, and we're asking you to remove that in our second reading the next time. So that's that policy. The next policy is policy 8430, and this again sort of mirrors the adult policy on use of and possession of tobacco or nicotine by students. And again, it defines nicotine and also inserts the language about e-cigarettes. So I won't go back and bore you with that. And it also adds in that provision as well, if a student is using prescription medication or some over-the-counter product designed to stop them, we don't want to stop them from doing that. So so that came out in policy as well. So that's very similar to our adult policy. And I believe, Madam Vice Chair, that's it for me.
And we appreciate that. Remind everyone that these policies are online so that we can get input from our school staff as well as the community, and certainly we need to hear from the board if you have any concerns or suggestions for changes or questions. Thank you, Mr. Hayes.
Thank you, Mrs. Nichols. Any other questions from the board on any of the policies? Well, the next item is a presentation, but I've been asked if we could to take a short 5-minute break prior to that presentation. So at this time, we'll take a little 5-minute break.